I got to know briefly about your transition to design manager role, and then you mentioned that you actually took a U-turn. You came back to an IC role, and then you gradually transitioned to the manager role again. Something that I have not heard happening, right? So I would love to know what your story is here.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start from my overall trajectory. Like
Sure.
joined my current company about 6 years back as a senior product designer. So from there
Mhm.
on to a lead product designer. And usually in Indian companies, the trajectory is that after a lead, you'll mostly transition into a manager role, right? Um, what I did not realize back then was a lot of things start happening differently when you move to a manager role, in the sense that
Okay.
you need to deal with a lot of people behaviors, their motivations, their ups and downs to enable them to grow, which kind of shift
Mhm.
focus from the craft that I wanted to spend time on, right?
Mhm.
So that's when it started making me feel like I'm not really giving it my 100%. And that's when I started speaking to a lot of folks around me,
Mhm.
understand what are the pros and cons. If I had to take a senior IC role,
Mhm.
parallelly transition to something like a staff product designer, how things would pan out. And a lot of people actually told me in India, it is a little risky to switch to this sort of a senior IC role because you would mostly find a lot of startups and mid stage companies as compared to bigger ones. After coming to this staff designer role, I wanted to zoom out, take a look at the whole system, focus on things like frameworks, design systems, which would help build the right foundations for all of these products to build ground up. I also started thinking about what kind of processes I can set up for the team so that the whole design team can even function.
Mhm.
This, of course, came in with a lot of guidance from my manager as well. She actually helped me carve out this kind of work. And yeah, thanks to that. And I think we were able to create a lot more visibility for design in terms of how the product shapes. So that was a great learning curve for me. And I did work on a few cross org horizontal projects while being a staff product designer. And that's when I felt that now my eagerness to actually contribute to the craft and do things hands on is fulfilled. And I felt, okay, now I know all of it good enough to actually become a design manager and lead a team and give them the kind of mentorship that I really want to do give.
Got it.
So, yeah, that's when I transitioned back to a design manager role.
So a lot of interesting things that you mentioned, right? I noticed that your org were recently hiring a lead designer, and actually the search went for a very long period. So is that search still going on?
No, we've actually been able to close a lead role a few months back. But the search did go on for very long. I think we interviewed more than 80 to 100 people. Uh, what we usually look for in a lead product designer, first is our company is extremely problem first, right? So we
Mhm.
look for someone who is very clear on the problem that they are trying to solve, both
Mhm.
quantitatively in terms of what impact will it bring
Okay.
on the business, and
Mhm.
qualitatively in terms of the material user experience. You should be able to look at some data along with your product manager. You should be
Mhm.
able to structure those data insights. And
Mhm.
is he actually able to use those insights to come up with a better solution? There are a lot of people who would do research, but in the end, you really want to evaluate other research insights being utilized to form an effective solution.
Mhm.
Other thing that we want this person to also have is systems thinking, like I was telling you earlier. Whenever they
Mhm.
are in charge of building a feature, they should not just try to optimize their own feature. They need to understand how it works with the entire system for a user who is not only coming to that platform for that feature, who has 10 other features to interact with. This is something we look out for. How is that person able to think in systems? And also
Mhm.
and we also want LPDs to usually exhibit is focus. It's very important that you do not take up five different things and try to do all of them, but you pick up one or two things that you feel are going to add the most value, even when they are presenting their portfolio. When they are also creating a solution, we try to ensure that they also have a short term and long term view that this is how
Mhm.
products should look in 3 months, but in 2 years from now, this is how
Oh,
scale. And whatever we have
oh,
is also compatible.
okay.
The thinking of end state vision should ideally be there. And then
Mhm.
you can narrow down, you cut down scope and say, hey, for the MVP, we'll build this much only. So that
Mhm.
requires a lot of judgment. And for that, we want people who are actually opinionated. We don't want people who
Okay.
don't have an opinion and or who are very easily influenced. They have to have the right parameters to think structurally, to navigate that, hey, if this kind of a problem comes up, this is the kind of
Mm,
solution or the approach we take. Apart from this, like I said, ability to articulate trade-offs, maybe also when you're faced with a problem, how much ownership can you take? Do you
mm,
usually step up and take the lead and say, I'm going to do what it takes to make this work or make this happen? Or you're someone who usually would push the blame on someone? This is something we are definitely looking for in terms of the hard skills. Apart from
mhm,
what would usually be there is like general design craft, design excellence, which even a senior product designer would have ability to talk to user, being user first,
mm,
communication to a great degree that even a senior designer would do. So these are all the usuals that we anyway look for. And these are things that are understandable through interviews. When you ask candidates to
mm,
talk about, say, a moment where they failed in something, you would
mhm,
usually look for how they have gone about that failure. Did they really create a reason to not achieve it and probably push the blame on someone? Or did they actually take ownership? Did they actually say that, hey, I failed, but these are a few things I learned and I implemented them next? These are some very positive attitudes that we notice because these are the kind of cultural values that you as a leader would also pass on to the organization. These are few things that we definitely look for as things that make a lead product designer stand out as compared to another senior designer.
based on your like recent experience of around 80 to 100 designers that you have interviewed, what was the like primary reason that you found to like not go ahead with a candidate?
So usually
Mm-hmm,
a lot of people who get eliminated in the portfolio round. So if they are presenting a case study, we want to ensure that they have spent
mm-hmm,
time in understanding the problem statement, questioning their, say, product counterparts in why we have to do something like this. Why is it important for the business? And then has also been able to contribute to user research wherever required, and is able to use those insights and come up with the final solution. A lot of
ah,
people actually get
mhm,
rejected because they say that I have done a lot of research. They will like there will be many pages of it. But in the end, when you look at the solution, there are so many research insights which never got used, right? Or they were just generic insights. So this
mm,
is something that we definitely look for in a lead product designer because there is an angle of benefit of doubt. There are
mm,
certain you will not be able to understand through a portfolio as well, which you would rather
correct.
stall to the next round. So the next one is a problem solving round where it's more like whiteboarding. We try to evaluate how much depth they can cover, how well process oriented and structured they are. Also, at that point, we sometimes check how much they are able to influence solutioning. For example, if there are multiple approaches, is that person even able to diverge and come up with multiple approaches to solve a problem? Out of those approaches,
Mm,
that person making the right judgment calls. For example, are they prioritizing the right things really that are also good for
mhm,
the business? Or if in
mhm,
terms of solution, are they thinking, are they going by a short term solution that will only work for the short term but is low effort? Or are they actually trying to push for the bigger things that will matter in the long term? Something more
okay.
10x.
So here I assume you evaluate skills like divergent thinking, systems thinking, focus rather than being a multitasker. If you are able to prioritize the right solutions with obviously its pros and cons. Do you essentially provide a hard problem statement, or do you believe in providing a very simple problem statement?
It is in between. It would be unfair to say it's hard or easy. It would
Okay.
rather be of some kind of a hypothetical situation. For example, you are in
Mm-hmm.
this situation and there is a product like this.
Uh,
How would you, for example, build the experience around it? Or if there is already a problem with that experience, how would you solve it? What are the steps you would follow? The hard aspect of it is that it's not like a product that you will probably see out there in the market. It'll not be something that you can just look at and say that, hey, I'm going to make it like that. So from that point of view, it is a little tough, but simple because it is something you'll be able to relate to. It would be a problem that you would also be facing as a user.
the reason I ask this question is because being interviews in myself, I have also faced the middle ground is not there. It's either a very hard problem or a
Okay.
very simple problem, and both of them are there to evaluate different skills. So a simple problem would evaluate how would you add depth to the problem and how will you not directly jump to the solution because the problem is simple in itself, right? So that's a like a honey trap, right?
Correct.
And a hard problem is to basically then evaluate how do you break down that problem and then find a very So both of them are kind of honey traps for rejecting the candidate who have this solution oriented mindset. Is there any round after this, after whiteboarding?
Yeah, there is a bar raiser round. It's mostly a culture fit round. At this point, you would mostly be checking any kind of behavioral red flags, or if the
Mhm.
person's just not really serious about the role.
Can you give me an example of this behavioral red flag?
Yeah. For example, we once had a candidate who was very good with his portfolio. He was decent with his problem solving. And in problem solving, also, we had some doubts in terms of his communication. We felt that that person always wanted to ensure that he is right. Although most of the times the points he made sense, but whenever he was given any feedback or even during the whiteboarding round, we tried to course correct him. He was not very open to taking that up and he moved
Mm.
forward with his ideas itself. This pattern was also noticed in the final round by our VP back then. And she also mentioned that, hey, if we have this kind of a person, it'll be really hard to have him build a team because he would mostly care about his own goals and objectives as compared to the team's.
Mhm.
And you always have to make him feel right. And that's not a very healthy culture to have. So,
Right.
in these kind of cases, we usually move them out.
Do you also look for signs for why the person wants to join the organization?
We usually ask them what is the reason that they are looking to join. If there's anything specific that they want to have in their growth path, are they looking
Mm.
forward to certain kind of opportunities that
Yeah.
could come? And if Misho really aligns with that growth path of theirs.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So now I just as a last part, we've covered everything, right? In the let's say last 1 year, have you mentored someone to get a promotion to a lead role?
Yeah, it has happened very recently. Someone was at a senior product designer role, and there are certain skills that you need to showcase for the next level. And she was actually showing these signs from really long time. She had a lot of good people skills. She was able to influence stakeholders, and above all, she had a
Mhm.
strong user first mindset. She was
Mhm.
able to actually convince all the stakeholders for the ideas that we had for.
Okay. But did you have to groom her in a certain way? Like or ask her to develop certain skills or mentor her in a specific way, or was it like a smoother transition?
We had discussed this quite a time back. This was
Mhm.
the growth path that we had in general thought through. She also had that in her mind that she has
Acha.
to the ladder. Before you move on to a lead role, you would usually have a window of say 6 months where the
Okay.
expectation is that you already show some signs of a lead. At that point of time, my role in this whole thing was to tell her which are the areas she is lacking in terms of an LPD or even an SPD, if there are any areas that she really needs to up on. As an LPD, what are the things that she had to do differently? What are the new kind of things that she needs to now focus on apart from
Okay.
the core work that she is doing? I tried to create the right environment that we could make this happen so that they soon know how to do it themselves, the third time or the fourth time. So, yeah, these were certain situations that we faced.
Let's say someone outside who's not working in your team right now comes to you and says, "Hey, Ashmita, I'm a senior designer right now. This is my work. I want to be a lead designer at some company." Right?
Mm.
How would you evaluate whether the readiness of a lead designer for this person?
Got it. The first thing I would
Mm-hmm.
start with is probably his work. I would want
Okay.
to see his work and try to understand, does he have any exposure or experience in terms of problem discovery, where he has not really inherited the problem from, say, a PM. Has he
Mm-hmm.
been able to actually do research himself? Has he been able
Okay.
to at least collaborate with a PM to understand data? Or whatever problems he has gone on to solve, is he clear as to how it will improve the business? Uh, this is something I'll look for. After
Mm-hmm.
this, in terms of the solution, I'll definitely look for whether this person has been able to diverge and explore a variety of solutions. And
Mm-hmm.
has he been able to narrow down to the best solution of them all with his proper
Mm-hmm.
judgment of pros and cons and trade offs? If the design skills are fine, I would then evaluate his ability to communicate. It comes out while discussing projects itself, if he's able to really articulate what he has done and why he has done in a very structured manner, which makes sense to someone like me who doesn't have any understanding of the project. Broadly, these few things are the main ones. If these three or four top things work out, then in the next 6 months or 8 months, We will continue to monitor these kind of behaviors. We will ensure that these are being exhibited more consistently, at least 3-4 times, so that they get a hang of it.
That was like very well put, very well articulated. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any more questions from you, Ashmita.
Okay, awesome.